إنني هداني ربي إلى صراط مستقيم دينا قيما ملة إبراهيم حنيفا وما كان من المشركين.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to this new episode of Our Values. And today we will talk about a value that is shared by almost all humans, in the sense that they all value it. But the problem is, rarely you will find people implementing it, and that is caring for others' feelings. Now, talk is easy. However, when you come to implement this, you find that this is a little bit difficult. To cater for other people's feelings, their differences in psychology, their happiness and sadness, not to hurt their feelings, not to snoop over their own private affairs, not to harm them by any means. To care for other people's feelings means that you share with them their happiness, and you also share with them their grief, and you overlook their shortcomings and not emphasize, to question them, to pressure them, to interrogate them. And this concept of caring for other people's feelings, usually it's a one-way road. See, I like all people to be considerate of my feelings, but the vast majority of us don't care about other people's feelings. If you look at Islam, and Islam is a way of life, it's not only limited in praying and fasting, though these are the pillars of Islam, but it is far more wider if you look at it and want to follow what pleases Allah Azza wa Jal. For example, it is part of our values not to hurt other people's feelings. And I'll give you examples. It is prohibited in Islam, if we are three in a room, that two of us speak secretly, leaving the third out of it. This hurts his feelings. He may think that you are conspiring against him. He may think that you are criticizing him or making fun of him, even if two speak in a different language that the third does not know. Islam prohibits this. And so many times, when I'm with a friend in a car in a foreign country, and we would like to speak in Arabic, and he's speaking to me or I'm speaking to him, then we stop and we tell the driver, do you permit us to speak in our own native language? And the driver, a non-Muslim, says, what's the problem? And we tell him that in our religion, it is prohibited without seeking your permission first. And the man is astonished of the beauty of Islam that calls for such an etiquette. See, etiquette does not mean that you open the door for a woman and say, ladies first. Etiquette does not mean that you hold the fork and the knife in a special way and the way you eat. This is cultural. In some cultures, this is accepted and maybe required, but in others, it has no value. What we're talking about is what our religion tells us to do, commands us to do. And this is a difference. It's not a cultural thing. This is part of your religion that you get closer to Allah Azza wa Jal with. Allah Azza wa Jal also prohibited us from hurting other people's feelings, especially when we give them charity. Allah says, "O you who have believed, do not invalidate your charities with reminders or injury." Reminders, that is, when I give someone charity, every day I see him, I remind him, didn't I do this for you? Didn't I give you? You're ungrateful. You're unthankful. And injury is when I may oppress the person by also talking ill to him or abusing him or misbehaving because I have the upper hand. Also, Islam promotes that we conceal our charities for two reasons. One, so that I would not boast about it or feel good about it, that I'm showing off to the people, but most importantly, so that I would not hurt the feelings of this beggar, this person in need. Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran, if you disclose your charitable expenditures, they are good. But if you conceal them and give them to the poor, it is better for you. This saves face for the poor person. Imagine if we are 5 or 10 people in a gathering and a beggar passes by and I says, hey, you, come. Muhammad, Abdullah, servant of Allah, come. And I make it public. And the guy comes in, doesn't know what I want to do. I put my hand in my pocket and I give him 10 riyals or 50 riyals. Okay, this is good charity, but the harm that I have inflicted upon this poor person is far worse than not giving him. And this is highly recommended in Islam. The Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, 7 on the day of judgment are in the shade of Allah when there is no shade but the shade of Allah. And he mentioned 7 people. One of them was a man who gave in charity with his right hand what his left does not know about what the right is spending. Meaning that he is so into concealing his charity that even his left hand doesn't know how much he paid. Likewise, those who beg and those orphans. Allah says in Surah Al-Duha, so as for the orphan, do not oppress, and as for the beggar, do not repel. And the common denominator between an orphan and a beggar, that both are needy and that both get offended easily. So the orphan, do not oppress him because you are in charge of him. He's your nephew, he's your grandson, and you oppress him and you humiliate him. Allah tells you, do not do this. And the beggar, the petitioner, the person who comes and asks, do not repel him in the sense that you shout at him and you tell him, go away. What are you doing? Don't touch me. Don't do this. So you break his heart by doing this, and this is not part of Islam. Part of caring for others' feelings, that you do not insult the dead when the living can be harmed and humiliated by it. Ikrimah, may Allah be pleased with him, the son of Abu Jahl. So Abu Jahl is the pharaoh of this ummah. He's cursed, he's in hell, and there's no doubt in that. But the Prophet ﷺ forbade the companions to curse him, though he's dead, though he's kafir, though he's an enemy of Islam, because cursing him hurts his son Ikrimah, who is a Muslim. Now, this is like driving, and a good driver does not look at the vehicle in front of him, rather looks through the windshield at the car in front of the one in front of him so that he can anticipate any emergencies. Likewise, in Islam, it's not only the direct person you are in contact with, but also the consequences that may fall from your action or from what you say. Because of that, you have to be careful. The Prophet ﷺ had the upper hand in caring for others' feelings. Abu Jahm, one of the companions, sent a garment to the Prophet ﷺ that had drawings in it. So the Prophet wore this khamisa and he started praying voluntary prayers, 2 rak'ahs. And when he offered the salam, he immediately took it off. And he said that this garment confused me in my prayer, occupied me because of these drawings and flashy colors in them. So the Prophet ﷺ told them to take it back to Abu Jahm. Now, Abu Jahm gave this a gift to the Prophet ﷺ. Giving it back to him would certainly break his heart. And this is why the Prophet said, ﷺ, take this garment back to Abu Jahm and bring me his other plain colored garment. So this would fix the issue. Okay, the Prophet returned my gift, but he requested another one. So I'm pleased because the Prophet selected ﷺ what he desires, and I am happy because my gift was accepted by the Prophet ﷺ. Likewise, As-Sa'b ibn Jatham, may Allah be pleased with him, while the Prophet was in Ihram, he gave the Prophet ﷺ, he hunted a zebra and he gave the meat to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet rejected it. So As-Sa'b, you could see it in his face that he was a little bit hurt. So immediately the Prophet elaborated ﷺ, and he said, we did not reject it except because we are in the state of Ihram, hence that you hunted it for us. And this is not permissible for people in the state of Ihram. Not only this, even in Salah, the Prophet ﷺ used to care for people's feelings. Once he was praying and he heard a young infant crying out loudly in the prayer. So the Prophet ﷺ hastened in his prayer and wrapped it up and then addressed the companions, telling them that I heard the child crying and I was worried about his mother's heart. I felt sorry for his mother, so I wanted to wrap up the salat quickly so that his mother can attend to the child and take care of him. Now this hadith by itself, we could spend a couple of episodes talking about the Prophet's ﷺ mercy. The Prophet ﷺ did not address the woman like so many ignorant in the masjid do. When they shout and scold the woman, why did you bring your child? You don't fear Allah. You have annoyed us. You have disturbed us. They don't do this publicly. The Prophet did not even do this, ﷺ, though people do not know which woman is he talking about. Yet what we see in our masjids of discord, of disunity, of raising the voice in the masjid shows you that we are so far away from our true values and from understanding the essence of Islam. The Prophet took good care of people's feelings, alayhi salatu wasalam. And he also took good care of children's feelings. Once he was in the salat leading the congregation and he prostrated, but he took so long that some of the companions raised their head to see whether he died or something happened to him. And when he did that, he saw the Prophet's grandchild on his back. So after the Prophet ﷺ concluded his prayer, they said, O Prophet of Allah, you have prolonged the sujood unlike what you used to do. And he said, my grandson mounted me as his ride, and I did not want to disturb him. Even the child, alayhi salatu wasalam, of course it's a form of ibadah, so prolonging the sujood is ibadah, but it's hitting two birds with one stone. Look at the mercy of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Not only that, even the animals, the Prophet takes care of their feelings. When he saw a bird, the companions came to its chicks and took it. And the bird came flapping its wings, looking for its chicks. And the Prophet ﷺ, who scared and terrified this bird with her children? Return her children immediately. We have a short break. Stay tuned, and inshallah we'll be right back.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Amar Amonet, and I would like to wish all the viewers of Peace TV a blessed month of Ramadan.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome back. Now, as Muslims, we're ordered to pay attention to others. You do not live on earth alone. So many of us are known among the public to be rude, to be abusive. There are even groups claiming to follow the Salafiyah who are so abusive, slanderous, backbiters, and they justify this by saying that this is Islam. This is jarh wa ta'deel. And they repel people away from Sunnah with their attitude, with their arrogance, thinking that they are the cream of the cream. This is not Islam. In Islam, even if we come to a gathering of the Muslims, there are a number of etiquettes to be followed Islamically, not culturally. Such as, when you go in and you see two sitting next to each other, you are not allowed to separate them and say, please move on, move a little bit to the side and sit in between them, unless they allow you to. Because they were talking to each other, they were close to each other, and now you are separating them. Even if they had something secretive, you have interrupted it. Also, it is not permissible for you to come and see someone sitting and say, stand up, let me sit in your place. This is totally prohibited. And likewise, if someone was already sitting and he went, like to answer the call of nature or to open the door or to bring some food, and came back and you sat in his place, you have no right to sit there because he was sitting there before you. So you have to get up and leave that spot back to its rightful owner. The way we treat our guests, we have to be considerate of their feelings. So when the guest comes, I don't show him that he came in the wrong time. I don't express to him that I'm fed up with him or I have little time. I don't brag about the food I put. Sometimes the food is served and the host says, you know how much this costs? You know how far did I have to go to get you this? And this is one of the delicacies of so-and-so fruits, and this hurts the feelings of the guest. And he feels the injury and the oppression. And vice versa. When you are a guest, you must respect your host. So you sit where he tells you to sit. You do not harm his family by sitting in front of the door or moving in the house without his permission. Or if you sense that he's busy, that you don't take or consume more of his time. If you are in a person's house, the Prophet says you are not allowed to lead the prayer in his house without his permission. Even if you are a sheikh or an imam or a hafiz, it's my house. You have no right in leading the prayer if I do not allow you. And you have no right to sit on my couch, on my special chair, unless I give it to you. All of this to cater for people's feelings. The neighbors, we have to care for their feelings. We must not harm them by any type of harm, because the Prophet ﷺ said, Wallahi la yu'min, 3 times. By Allah, he is not a believer whose neighbor is not in safety from his harm. So if I harm my neighbor by raising the volume of haram music or even of Quran, if it annoys him and he's unable to sleep, if I put my trash in front of his home, if I park in his parking spot, if my children annoy him or hit his windows with a ball, with a stone, or etc., this means that I'm not a true believer. Not only that, caring for people's feelings, my neighbors. If I cook and they can find the smell of it, the Prophet ﷺ told Abu Dharr to increase the amount of food and the water in it so that you can give to your neighbors and share with them. Part of caring for people's feelings, that you do not interrupt them when they speak. Even if you know, sometimes someone says, I have a joke. It is stated that somebody did this, and someone interrupts, yeah, we know this, and he completes it for him. A'udhu billah. This is rude. This is not Islamic. Ata, may Allah have mercy on his soul, he says that sometimes I get people narrating to me hadiths that I am the one who narrated it initially, but I pretend that this is the first time I hear it. And sometimes they narrate hadiths for me, that I heard it before they were born, but I pretend not to have heard it before. Look at this beautiful moral conduct of a high caliber of scholars, not to hurt other people's feeling. Now, you have to pay attention to not hurting people's feelings when you teach them. Like the man who came and urinated in the masjid. The Prophet ﷺ did not reprimand him, did not scold him. On the contrary, he told them, leave him until he's through. And then he asked them to bring him to him. And then he told him, my nephew, these masjids are made for recitation of the Quran, for dhikr and for prayer, and not for such impurities. Also, the man who spoke while praying in congregation, and all the companions wanted to scold him. The Prophet said, ﷺ, leave him. When he finished, the Prophet taught him in a kind and beautiful fashion. Even the wrongdoers, when they do something wrong, the Prophet does not come to them face to face, ﷺ, but rather he would go and give a speech and say, why do so and so people pretend this and that and do this and that? So he indirectly addresses the issue, but he doesn't give names. He makes it open so that those who do not know would not have an idea who he is talking about, while those who did that wrong thing would acknowledge it. And the Prophet ﷺ was also caring for the ill. The Prophet said, ﷺ, do not stare at those afflicted by leprosy. Do not stare. When you see someone who is sick or has a disability and you keep on staring on him, how would he feel? And this is why the Prophet ﷺ told us that whenever you see a person who is afflicted with some trial, and you say, praise be to Allah who has spared me that which he has tested you and has favored me over many of those whom he has created, the Prophet said, that trial will not befall him. Now, do I say this while he's listening and he can hear it? The scholar said, no way. You should not say this while he hears it, because this breaks his heart. Then when do I say it? Say it silently. And there are so many other examples when we have to cater for their feelings in mourning, when we have to cater their feelings when they are begging, or when someone does something wrong unknowingly and we would like to fix it, Islam orders us to try our level best, even if something is embarrassing. Imagine you are in the salat, in the congregation, and you break wind, or you remember that you did not perform wudu. I cannot continue praying because I would be pretending to Allah that I'm offering a form of worship while actually I'm not. What to do? Caring for people's feelings. The Prophet said, "As-salam, you should put your hand over your nose as if you have nose bleeding. And then you should go out of the masjid and perform wudu." So this pretending that your nose is bleeding is not showing off, is not riya, is not lying, but rather it is to conceal your embarrassment in an Islamic way. Of course, we have to be kind and caring when it comes to the parents. So you do not at all attempt to hurt your parents' feeling, not even by staring in them, right in the eyes, not even by showing any emotion of negativity or resentment in your face when they say something you do not like, not by turning your face away from them while they're talking. This is totally prohibited. Practical jokes. So many people are insultive. They come in the middle of the night, they knock your door down, or they call you and say, "Where is your brother?" And you say, "My brother, I haven't seen him today. Maybe he went to my father's house." And he says, "Well, he had a heart attack, or he had an accident," and he's lying. And this may cause me a heart attack. So such practical jokes are not part of proper Islam when it causes harm to the Muslims. Part of showing your caring to people is that you do not express your joy when someone is mourning, when someone is sad. And at the opposite, you do not express your sorrow and sadness to someone who is in a wedding or who is happy. So how can we reach this level of caring for other people's feelings? It's a long list, but among the first points is that we should always feel the connection between us and our brother Muslims. Allah says, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. So we are brothers in Islam, and we have to maintain and keep this brotherhood by caring for their feelings. And we also have to bear in mind that we do not hurt other people's feelings because it is sinful. And the Prophet ﷺ told us that a true Muslim is a Muslim who other Muslims are in safety from the harm of his rhetoric and his actions. And you also need to acknowledge that in order to be a full believer, a true believer, that you have to love to others what you love to your own self. So if I like others to care for my feelings, then I have to as well care for other people's feelings. And also, Allah says, man does not utter any word except that with him is an observer prepared to record. So whenever you want to say something, if it might hurt others, then be careful, because the angel is recording it and you will be reprimanded or punished for it. So this helps you always to think before you speak or act, to be in safety from such consequences. And finally, you have to practice over and over again. Allah Azza wa Jal says, and those who strive for us, we will surely guide them to our ways. So the more you try to be patient and work hard and train, you will be patient. You will be forgiving. You will be caring for other people's feelings. And I pray to Allah that He excel our moral conduct and akhlaq to make us like this.
إنني هداني ربي إلى صراط مستقيم دينا قيما ملة إبراهيم حنيفا